Hey, everybody, welcome to the third episode of Spitballin', the Allen Iverson number 3 episode of Spitballin'. I am Mike Small, along with my guy, Double D, Dylan Davis. We are here to talk anything and everything about the fightin' Phils and Phillies baseball. Double D, since our last conversation, I look at the standings this morning, and your fightin' Phils are a game and a half out of first place, firmly entrenched in a playoff spot. But it hasn't been without its excitement over the last week.
No, it hasn't, Mike. And it wouldn't be the Phillies if it wouldn't be Philadelphia since our last show if the Flyers didn't get knocked out of the playoffs, and then the Phillies follow that up with going from winning 10 of 11 to kind of maybe coming back down to earth a little bit. So yeah, since our last show, we talked all about how Bryce Harper came out and said the Phillies had to win 9 of their next 10. Mm-hmm. They do exactly that. They win even after our episode on Friday and win 10 of 11, and they're on a roll. And since our last show, they are now 3-3 in their last 6. They split with the Mets in a 4-game series. They split a doubleheader at home against the Red Sox yesterday. They have the day off today before going to Miami for a 7-game series, which we'll get into because that series is going to be huge with only about 21 games left of the season. I was really positive, and I still am, but a little less so than our last episode, because it just seems to me that we're going to have our third episode today, and it's going to be the third straight episode where we talk about this bullpen that isn't getting any better.
Let me hit you with a statistic. So last episode, we were starting to get optimistic. Girardi's got their roles figured out. These guys feel comfortable. And actually, Workman's looked pretty good lately.
Yeah.
The other guys, not so much. So listen to this stat here. Phelps, Workman, Hembry, and Hale, since they got here, have thrown a combined 21 and a third innings, have given up 18 runs, 10 home runs, and have given up 46 base runners. They've got a combined ERA since becoming Phillies of 7.59 and a 2.16 whip. That is not the work of Genius Klentak that we thought it was. Well, we didn't really think it was, but we were kind of hoping that it was.
Did you get that off of Johnny Airport's Twitter?
What's that?
You get that off of Johnny Airport, John Clark's Twitter?
I did, as a matter of fact.
Stole my thunder, man. I had that right.
I did. Well, we're both doing our homework, but actually we're both letting John Clark do our homework, which is even better. But the bottom line is, it's those are some staggering statistics. And the thing that's bothered me the most is, I know Hembry and Hale are middle relievers, and Hembry was, having a better than his usual season. And you thought he might be able to slide into a 6th inning role. Workman's been pretty good over the last week or so.
He's the only one.
Phelps has been a disaster. He's given up home runs every time he gets in the game. And he really blew that game yesterday.
Yeah, and I think his walk to ball ratio, his strikeout to walk ratio, before coming to Philly was like 20 strikeouts to 2 walks this season. And now his ratio is like even with Ks and walks. But the bottom line, Mike, is right here. Wild Wild West says Phillies will go nowhere in the playoffs with that bullpen. They're lucky they haven't played a full season.
Can't disagree with that right now.
The bottom line. It's our third episode, and it's going to be the third straight week that they haven't figured it out. And it is, I said it earlier that it wouldn't be Philadelphia without this happening. It wouldn't be Philadelphia without guys who were performing well before they came here, get to Philly and start underperforming or whatever you want to call it, coming back down to earth, or however Phelps was pitching before he got here. But
right,
look, last week we talked a lot about Joey G, Joe Girardi figuring out their roles. Workman's your closer now. You have Phelps and Neris and Hembry in that 6, 7, 8.
I feel good about Neris in the 8th and Workman in the 9th right now. I don't feel great about it, but I feel good about it.
Right. It's good enough.
I just want to feel good that if it's a 2-2 game in the 5th, somebody can hold it.
Well, I would also like to have a 6-0 lead or a 4-1 lead halfway through a game be held. And since our last episode, those are 2 leads that they've blown. I know people are saying they've blown their last 3 leads. I'm not counting the second Red Sox game in the doubleheader when they were up 2-0 in the first or second inning, whatever it was last night. Not counting a blown 2-0 lead because that was Velasquez came out of the game 2-2. He did pitch well. last night. But look, a 6-0 lead against the New York Mets. They ended up winning that game. I think it was Alec Bohm came out after he walked off the Red Sox first game of the doubleheader yesterday, and where the bullpen had blown the 4-1 lead, you know what? It wasn't even necessarily the bullpen, because they were up 4-1, and Zach Eflin gave up 2 back-to-back home runs to make it a 4-3 ball game, and it completely changed there. And then Hembree came in and was a disaster. But Alec Bohm, I think, said it best. For such a young kid, he said, "Look, we know they have our backs, and they know we have their backs. So on the night that it is kind of, I guess, a pick-me-up in my mind, I guess, that the bullpen is blowing leads still, but that the offense is bouncing back and keeping them afloat. So even with the bullpen struggles, I mean, they were a 500 team since our last show, so it's not like
I have another stat for you. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
I stole this one from Corey Seidman. If the Phillies won every game in which they held a lead of 2 or more runs, they would be 30-9 right now and have a 7.5 game lead over the Atlanta Braves. Wow.
Well, because we keep going back to it. They still have the worst ERA in the MLB. They still do.
Yeah.
They have a 7.24 combined bullpen ERA, even after he made all the moves. Yeah. And with 20 games left, it has to get figured out.
So we're going to look back at 2020 as Klentek saved the season by adding all these arms, or he just put lipstick on a pig. And right now, it's kind of a nice shiny red on that lipstick. It really, really is. But the good news that you mentioned is, how about the Rook? I mean, Alec Bohm looks terrific. He looks like the real deal. And I did once again save another statistic for you. Alec Bohm, with runners in scoring position this season, is 11 for 23 with 13 RBIs. He shortens up his swing. He's got a great approach. At first, it looked like he was only hitting fastballs. Now he's smacking everything. He's going the other way. He's got a really, really nice swing. He's got, like I said, a great approach at the plate. And I think he's got the kind of ability, whether it's his power or it's the way that he is able to hit the ball where it's pitched, he's got the kind of bat that's going to last. I don't think it's one of those flash in the pans.
No, neither do I. And for such a young kid and for a rookie in this league, he's only played 24 games this season. He is such a professional hitter. Like you said, the way he sat, I don't know if you saw the first game against the Red Sox yesterday, but the way he sat with 2 strikes and waited for that curveball and just hit it where it was pitched. He didn't try to lift it. He didn't try to kill it. He just put it in play and drove home the 2 runs. That's all he needed to do for the win. But look, man, I came prepared for you too. Is Alec Bohm a Rookie of the Year candidate? Because in just 24 games this season, he has 15 RBIs. He's batting just under 300. He's got a 291 average with a 7.62 OPS. And you mentioned how he's 11 for 23 with runners in scoring position. He has a 458 batting average with runners in scoring position, which ranks first among all National League hitters with a minimum of 20 plate appearances.
That's pretty good.
So I'd say the kid is pretty damn good.
I think he is in the running. There's a guy on San Diego whose name is escaping me right now, who I think would be the leader in the clubhouse. I can't remember his name, but I think Bohm is in the conversation. There's no question. If he keeps this up, he's definitely more than in the conversation. But, I know all the criticism about his fielding, and yeah, it's got to get a lot better. But you know what? It is getting better. It's not embarrassing. Yeah. He's going to make some errors. It's fine. But you know what? One of the things we plan to talk about today is the defense. Didi's been struggling on defense. They've dropped some balls in the outfield. The other day it cost him a game when Bryce Harper didn't call off Neil Walker when Walker was going out to second base, and Harper should have caught it and thrown home in that game against the Mets. So their defense was a disaster the last couple of years. It's better, but it's still got a ways to go.
It definitely has a ways to go, because we sit here and we talk about the bullpen, blowing games and blowing leads, and that's a contributor to why the Phillies aren't in first place right now. The defense has been right there. I mean, the defense has cost Roman Quinn cost them a game not too long ago. Out in center field. I know he won them a game with a throw from left field against the Braves that turned the season around, but he also cost them a game out there in the outfield. Look, I think an issue is that we talk about Joe Girardi defining the roles in the bullpen, and I'm not so sure that defensively everyone knows their role right now. And I'm not blaming Joe Girardi at all. I think he's trying to put the pieces together with what he has and the injuries. Jay Bruce has been in and out. Roman Quinn's often on and off the disabled list. Kingery's been out. So, you have the infield being shuffled around. You have outfield. Bryce Harper's playing right field. Bryce Harper's playing center field. Kyle Garlick's out in right field. He was a disaster in right field 2 or 3 games ago. So I think he's trying to figure it out with the hand Klentak dealt him, and with the injuries. So there's a lot of room for optimism if they figure the shit out.
Right.
If the defense gets it together, if they make plays behind their pitchers and the bullpen gets their act together, then hey, I mean, this team, the sky's the limit for this team. But until that all happens, yeah, they're a playoff team, but that playoff run's going to get cut very short.
I was really disappointed in the offseason that they ended up bringing Gene Segura back, but where would they be without him right now? I mean, he's played a really good third base. He fills in at second base. He had the clutch hits yesterday, basically won them the game in game 1.
He had the home run against the Mets in that 9-8 win.
Yep. And Jimmy Cigarettes is getting it done, man. He really, really is. And, Girardi talked about it afterward, how difficult it is to get to your point. You make a really good point. To get to the park that day and not know where you're going to be playing, but you're ready, willing, and able to fill in. Shout out Jason Peters. And he's been able to do that and doesn't complain. Has played a really nice third base and has been getting some clutch hits of late.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And that's something you want in the character of a player. But if you're looking to make a postseason run, you need defined roles, in my opinion. Right. You can't have Gene Segura scattered at third base, second base, shortstop, Didi Gregorius, second base, shortstop, Kyle Garlick in the outfield, Bryce Harper swapping from right to center. Like, they need to figure it out in this last 20 games or there's going to be issues. Thing with going off what you said about
let me push back on you a little bit. Right. I think in the Gabe Kapler era, which I try not to think back about Captain Coconut Oil, but he was moving people around just because it was a day that ended in Y and he wanted to try it. Girardi's doing what he's got to do because of injuries to the point.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm not getting
I don't have an issue with it. But it's nice that they do have the versatility to cover for the injuries.
No, absolutely. This is not a stab at Joe Girardi. I'm just pointing out, like, yes, he's doing what he can with the pieces he has right now, but it does need, not because of him, but it needs to be figured out in these last 20 games. And hopefully they get a guy like Roman Quinn back, even though he's a little shaky in the outfield. Yeah. But going back to Gene Segura, he's another one that was struggling in the beginning of the season when it was the Bryce and JT show, and McCutchen was looking like, how much does Kutch have left in the tank?
Right.
Rhys was on a year-long drought. Gene Segura was another guy, and he's a walking spray chart. Like, he just puts the ball in play, and that's what he's getting back to, just putting it in play and hitting it where it's pitched. And I think, like you said, where would we be without Gene Segura right now?
And Didi Gregorius has been a great fit too. But I want to go back to something that you glossed over, which is a critical point. Gun to your head, if I asked you a month ago if you thought Rhys Hoskins' hot start a couple of years ago when he first came up and hit all those home runs was a flash in the pan, a fluke based on how he's performed over the last year, what would you have said, and what would you say now?
Well, what I have said is I was leaning that way a little bit, only because ever since he came in and hit 17 home runs in the month of August and a little bit of September, that was a very small sample size of Rhys Hoskins. And I think until now, we've seen more mediocrity out of Rhys Hoskins than that hot start. So I would have said, no, I don't think like, I think that was more Rhys Hoskins. I've also had comps. I've also had it thrown around out there from people, and I was starting to believe it a little, not believe it, but understand it. Like, Rhys, could he be the next Dom Brown? Dom Brown was on fire for that short stint with the Phillies, and then what happened with that. But
yeah,
look, what would I say now?
I'm going to throw two names at you. You're a young guy. You may not know either one of them. Ron Flockhart and Bob Dernier.
Nope.
Both those guys. Ron Flockhart came up with the Flyers, and he looked like Wayne Gretzky for about a month or two. And then, he ended up being a below-average player and out of the league. Bob Dernier came up, smacked the ball everywhere for the Phillies, was a center fielder, was fast, stealing bases. And then the league figured out he couldn't hit certain pitches, and he was out of the league in 2 or 3 years. And that's kind of where I was trending towards Rhys Hoskins up until a couple of weeks ago. But he's made the adjustment. I don't know I'm not a hitting savant, so I can't tell you if it's, that he's getting I read somewhere that he's getting his foot down in a more rhythmic fashion. And I can't give you the answer as to why it's happened, but credit to him and the Phillies coaching staff, because he looks a lot more like that guy that came up in 17 than he has over the last year.
He absolutely has, and I can't give you the why or the how it's happening either. What I can say is, for how big it is that he's coming around right now, it's huge. Because one, with the slump that Bryce is in right now, like you mentioned a bunch of times to me, he hasn't had an extra base hit, and I don't know how long.
He's
I don't
killing
know
my fantasy team right now.
I don't know if it was the haircut, the ejection, the night off, what it was, but he was slumping even before the night off. That Girardi gave him. But
he's still getting on base.
He is. But
he's one of the leaders in LVP, but he's got to be driving the ball. Thank goodness Rhys is hitting the ball.
Yeah, this team, Rhys is going to need to be a catalyst on this team for them to make a run. Because as good as I said this last show, I said it the week before, as good as Bryce Harper is when he's hot, as good as JT Realmuto is when he's hot, two of them together are only going to get you so far. You need other guys to step up, and number 17 at first base is going to need to be a huge reason, whether it's getting on ahead of Bryce, whether it's driving in runs. Because the thing is, this lineup, look, I was a traditional, I liked Bryce Harper at the 3. I liked Rhys Hoskins cleaning up last year. Joe Girardi moved Rhys Hoskins to the 2 hole, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. But he does walk a ton. He gets on base a ton. So I understood it, and I lived with it. The thing with this offense, the thing with this lineup is they're so deep, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not that Rhys is just there to get on base. Yes, to start the game, he's there. In the first inning, he's there to get on base in front of Bryce Harper and JT. But when you go 1 through 9 and you come back around to McCutchen and Rhys Hoskins, the 7, 8, 9 hole hitters are very good hitters that are getting Alec Bohm's down there, Adam Hazley, Roman Quinn, whoever, Jay Bruce, whoever's being thrown down there is more than capable of getting on base in front of Rhys Hoskins.
Agreed. Now, you just mentioned a name that we haven't talked about the entire time, and that's your boy JT Realmuto, the best catcher in baseball, whose contract is driving everybody crazy because we know that the Yankees just benched Gary Sanchez, and they've got a lot of money. We know that the Mets just got a new owner who's a multi-billionaire. They've got a lot of money. Both have catching needs. So that's kind of annoying, the fact that JT Realmuto does not have a contract next year. Sixto Sanchez looks like the reincarnation of Pedro Martinez. That's pretty annoying.
Did you see that leg kick video?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I did. Well, he looks great. So let me ask you this. So if JT was a basketball player, Stephen A. Smith would come on at Hot Take or First Take and say, well, Andrew Knapp's hitting 400. The Phillies don't need to re-sign JT Realmuto. That's just a joke. Please don't email me or tweet me on that one. But the bottom line is, it would suck if he just walked. And that looks like it probably will happen unless the Phillies open up the checkbooks.
Here's why it cannot happen. It cannot happen not only because he's the best catcher in baseball, but it can happen because of what you gave up for him. You want Jorge Alfaro, fine.
That's the Sixers mentality, sunken costs and trying to make decisions because of what you did, like Markelle Fultz and things like that. And that comes to bite you. You have to look at what you got. I agree with you. And, 2 years of JT Realmuto is not worth the next Pedro Martinez. So they've got to sign him.
Not even really 2 years of JT Realmuto. Technically sure, but it's a full season and it's a 60-game season of JT Realmuto. But I'll tell you why. Like I said, you're going to lose the best player, you're the best catcher in the MLB, and you want Jorge Alfaro, fine. You want cash consideration, whatever you want. You gave up Sixto Sanchez as a part of this deal, who in his first 4 career starts with the Marlins this season, he has a 1.80 ERA and under 1 whip at a .92, 25 Ks to 2 walks. And he made Ronald Acuna Jr. look stupid last night with
slow.
99.
That looks slow.
Yes, with 99 up. Okay?
Yeah.
So you're going to, if you let JT Realmuto slip through your fingers, you've not only lost the best catcher in baseball, you will have given up one of the best young pitching prospects who looks like the real deal with that Pedro Martinez leg kick, pumping 99 to 100, making all-stars look slow out there in his first 4 starts, who you get to face this upcoming in the next 7 games in Miami.
And the first real major pitching prospect the Phillies have developed in my lifetime. I mean, I'm not going to count Cole Hamels. He was a first-round pick and wasn't in the minors that long. I'm not going to count Nola. He was a first-round pick and wasn't in the minors that long. They've had Sanchez since he was 16 years old, and they've developed him. And, that hasn't happened very much in the Phillies minor league system, and this would be a disaster.
When I saw that tweet, that picture last night of those stats for Sixto, it made me nauseous. And I sent out my daily sign JT at Phillies tweet because I don't know if it's an Eagles thing. Like you were referencing the Sixers with their front office and Clentak. I don't know if it's an Eagles thing where, look, we're going to be smarter than everyone else. We're going to try to be ahead of the game here. What are you getting out of not signing him? What are you getting? You get nothing in return. It's not going to be a sign. It's not going to be a sign and trade, and you're getting anything back. You're losing the best at the position, and you gave up a buttload to get him.
Well, from what I've heard is that the Phillies are trying to make JT the highest paid catcher in baseball,
and he wants
to be considered one of the highest paid players in baseball. They had to know that going in that was going to happen. They had to know that around the arbitration hearing that was going to happen, and they had to have an idea that if you're going to bring Bryce Harper here and pay him $350 million, you're going to bring his buddy here and trade the farm for him. Literally, you're going to have to go over the luxury tax. And Middleton, I don't know what's the economy and the pandemic is doing to the cigar business, but in general, he's going to have to come up with the money. Or maybe they just wait till next year when Jake Arrieta's not next year, but maybe they say to himself, Jake Arrieta's contract's off. A couple other things are happening. Let's wait till later in the year and we can really pay him. But then it's going to cost you more money because you waited.
Right. Well, speaking of Jake Arrieta, I believe he is the first starter of the 7-game trip to Miami. Your boy.
Well, he had a good start last outing, so he's due for another Jake Arrieta start. So I'm not excited about it.
I knew there was something I wanted to bring up this show. Last week, you threw a question at me that you got from a listener, whoever, someone about Zach Eflin. And is he a third starter on this team? And, I said an astounding no. You, I think, agreed, but a little less. In his last
I think Spencer Howard is going to be the third starter on this team. But I think Eflin's a solid 4.
But let me I want to go back to that because of what we saw in that Red Sox game yesterday. So he has looked solid his last 2 to 3 starts. I'll give him that. But the reason I say no like that is because a third starter is going to pitch, if you're making a run, is going to need to pitch a lot of quality innings in postseason baseball. So he's going to be handing the ball obviously every 3 games. Your third starter cannot have a 4-1 lead in a playoff game in the 5th inning, and I believe it was the inning or the inning after that where the Phillies took the 4-1 lead and allow back-to-back solo blasts, and they're right back in the game. Good pitchers don't do that, especially against the Boston Red Sox. So when we had to play the Padres, the Dodgers, the Cubs, whoever we had to play in the National League playoff postseason, what do you think they're going to do to Zach Eflin?
Well, in all fairness, Aaron Nola did that recently too, so it happens. It's just got to happen less, and I think over the course of the season, he's gotten better.
So
he's gotten better. He's not a 3-starter. He's not going to pitch one of the first 3 playoff games, but I think he is getting better. I think he will be a decent. He's never going to be a good pitcher. He's going to be a decent pitcher, and I think he's fine in the number 4 or 5 slot.
I'll give him 5.
And he's better than Vince Velasquez, and he's better than Nick Pivetta.
Sure, but I do not want him on the mound in a meaningful postseason game. But we have a question from my man Prince here. What is Alec Bohm's ceiling? Is he a hitter for average, or is he a 30 to 35 home run guy with contact? If you want to take this one, and I'll follow up.
Yeah, we talked about a possible comp for him, and we talked about Jason Worth because he looks like him and he wears the same number. But in Worth's heyday, he batted around 300. He'd hit 30 home runs, and he could steal 20 or 30 bases. He never really put it all together for a long period of time. But I could see Bohm. I don't know if he's going to steal 30 bases, but I could see Bohm being that guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a 35, 40 home run guy because he's more of a line drive hitter, and he's gap to gap. But I can see him having a high on base percentage, a high slugging percentage, and a guy that hits 300 and definitely can average 25 to 30 home runs a year.
Yeah, I'm actually scary close with you on this one. I can see him being, look, he's only played 24 games, so maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but like we referenced earlier, for such a young hitter, for such a young kid, a rookie hitter in his first 20 so games, he looks like a professional baseball player at the plate. I think he's a career 300, 310 hitter, and I think he's, I would say, more of the 20 to 25 range home runs with an occasional throwing a 30 home run season here and there. Great question though, Prince, but I guess it's not a bad thing to have, right, Phillies fans, if you're talking about a guy that can either hit for 300 or hit 30 home runs.
I think lost in the shuffle too is at some point he's going to move up to about 5th in the lineup, and I can see him driving in 90 runs to 100 runs. That's where I think he's a run producer, and I think because he's got that short stroke with 2 strikes, he's going to be able to make contact in clutch situations. He's already shown that, and I think he's going to be a guy that can drive in 90 to 100 runs from that 5th slot, provide a little protection to whether it's Real Muto or whoever the hitter will be.
Well, before we move on to Prince's next question, because he's got one more.
Thanks, Prince.
To wrap up about Alec Bohm, the one thing that I've noticed early so far in his short career with the Phillies is that the hits with runners in scoring position, driving in runs, and in the moments he's doing it, the moment is never too big for him so far. Not yet. And like you said, he has had his shortcomings in the fields early, and that doesn't get to him either. Like that doesn't go into the next play in the field. That doesn't go into his next at bat. He's got a short memory, and the moment is never too big for him. He's 11 for 23 with runners in scoring position. He 2 outs at the plate in a game. The bullpen just blew in the first in a doubleheader against the Red Sox, and with 2 strikes. And he sits back on a breaking ball and rips it into left field for the win. He didn't try to kill it like I would have been up there trying to kill that ball up into the upper deck in left field. And he's just putting the ball in play, knowing he just needs a base hit probably for the win, and that's what it took. But Prince says, how many players can the Phillies build around right now going forward?
How many of their current starting lineup?
Prince, just clarify in the comments real quick. Are you talking batting lineup, or are you talking pitchers as well?
because you got to figure that Segura and Didi aren't going to be here long
No,
term.
but I do love
More
Didi. I would
production.
love to have Didi back. I don't.
I
I don't
think, yeah, I agree, but I'm not going to pay him a ton of money. But I think what you're looking at is Harper, hopefully Real Muto, Bohm, Kingery, and we got to figure out what Hazley is, and we got to figure out if Roman Quinn can ever stay healthy. So, you're looking right now in terms of a long-term build. It's Harper, hopefully Real Muto, and Bohm, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with those three as long as they re-sign JT, and if we're throwing in,
better spend some money on somebody else.
he says here pitchers as well. If we're throwing in pitchers, I give you two, and that's Aaron Nola and that's Spencer Howard. Zach Wheeler. What's Zach Wheeler's contract for? Was it 4 years or 5 years? 5 years. So Zach Wheeler is going to be here for a while, but once this contract's up, that's kind of going to be it. So you have three pitchers to build around.
Everything could change in 5 years. I mean, I think, when you talk about building around, you're going to build around Nola, Wheeler, and Spencer Howard for sure.
Right.
When Arrieta's gone, you hopefully want to get a much better number 3 option than he was. And then I think, he can fill the rest in. So they're going to have to put some money into the bullpen next year, some legitimate. But the problem with the bullpen is you could put a lot of money into guys that are closers or were closers. Bullpen, it's really hard to be consistent as a bullpen guy. I mean, there's not many Mariano Rivera's or Kenley Jansen's or Aroldis Chapman's out there. It's not a lot of these guys are really good for a 2-year stretch, and they get so burned out from all the innings and the high leverage situations that they never become back what they are. Exactly. It's very rare you find a guy like Mendoza from the Yankees who can, throw 2 innings for you for a couple of years. Or, I would have considered putting the money towards Hader, the pitcher for Milwaukee. There was a chance that they were in on a deal with him. Instead, they got David Phelps, who we can relitigate that one later. But I know Milwaukee wanted a lot, but that's the kind of guy you want. It's really hard to overinvest in the bullpen because you really just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, David Phelps is amazing a couple weeks ago. He sucks now. Hector Neris, we don't know what he is. He looks like he's going to be a closer. Then he looks like he can't get a little leaguer out. It's really, really difficult.
So Prince says here, is Zach Wheeler's strikeout total a concern this year for a power pitcher, or will they start coming? It's not a concern for me. I think they're going to start coming, and especially with his ERA. I know he gave up 3 in his last outing, I believe, but his ERA was at a 2.20 before his last start. So he's a low to mid 2 ERA pitcher. He pumps 98, 99 right out of the gate. I think they'll start coming. It would be a concern if he wasn't. It would be a concern if he wasn't putting batters away and he had a mid 3 ERA, but with a low 2 ERA, he was 4-0 before his last start. I haven't looked since his last start, but no, it's not a concern to me. So, I know you have a trivia question we're going to get to that we're going to wrap up with, but I'm going to ask you this, and we'll leave it with this in this week in the Phillies world. So the Phillies are currently 21-18. They are a game and a half behind the Atlanta Braves. Me and you on the first show talked about, look, in a weird season, injuries are going to happen. Injuries can happen, and if they fall the right way, well, you have the Washington Nationals, who the Phillies own so far, own the season, and Steven Strasburg is out for the season. You have the first place Atlanta Braves, who the Phillies are trailing right now by that game and a half, and their ace and Mac Fried is out right now. And the rest of their rotation
the Phillies can't hit a lick off of.
Right. So with that being said, I know that the bullpen continues to struggle, and that's a concern. And I know outside of really Nola and Wheeler, you're not sure what you're getting from the other 3, even though Spencer Howard shows a lot of promise. He's still young. Where are you right now? 21 games left in this Philly season with a huge Miami Marlins series coming up because they're only a game behind us, and we got 7 coming up in Miami.
Well, Miami's been a house of horrors for Philadelphia. I mean, even dating back to the early Charlie Manuel years. I mean, before 2007, the Phillies, they'd compete, and Larry Bowa would take a team down there, and then they'd get crushed by Joe Girardi's Marlins, and it would knock them out. And over the last few years, no matter how bad the Marlins have been, they always give the Phillies problems. I don't know if they're spending too much time on South Beach, going to Prime Steakhouse down there, one of the great spots. But it's difficult. The Phillies have to win 4 out of 7 against Miami, and and then just keep playing the rest. You'd like to see them win 5. I'll take 4 out of 7.
I'll take 4 out of 7 as well. I think this is a series where the Phillies are going to show you exactly who they are, in my opinion. I know they just won 10 out of 11, so it's hard to say that they're going to keep rolling. But this Miami Marlins team, I know they're staying hot, and I know they're staying in the thick of things in the playoff picture. But if the Phillies are the team that we believe that they are, that can win this division or can come in second, like a game or behind the Braves, this is a statement series. I know you're on the road. No fans, but I know you're still down in Miami for 7 games, so it's a little more difficult than if you were at Citizens Bank Park. But to me, this is a series where you got to go and take 5 of 2. Like I'll be okay. Look, I'll live with it if they win. They go 4-3 in the next 7 against the Marlins. But to me, 5-2 is the benchmark I'm looking for. You cannot, under any circumstances, lose this series and take 3 or less from this series, or else your season's in jeopardy.
Can they just beat Sixto Sanchez? That'd be good. That would be good.
No, I don't care. I don't care.
All right, let me give you the trivia question. We had a question about Zach Wheeler earlier. Zach Wheeler has allowed 3 runs or fewer in each of his first 8 starts of the season. He's tossed at least 5.2 innings in each one of those starts. Who is the last Phillies pitcher to begin a season? This is going back to the 90s. There's my hint. Who is the last Phillies pitcher to begin a season with as many straight such starts?
Do I get multiple choice like you offered?
No, I changed the question, but I'll tell you what. I'll give you 3 guesses. How about that?
God. Dude, I have no idea.
Well, think of really good pitchers for the Phillies in the 90s.
Well, I'm a 98 baby. I'm a little ahead of that.
Ironically, the answer was in 1998. So you don't remember? Little diaper genie watching the Phillies?
No, because the original Phillies pitchers that I grew up with were Kevin Millwood, Brandon Duckworth.
I actually give you a lot of credit. You have not had to live a life watching guys like Jeff Geary and Don Carmen and some of the dreck that I grew up with. Good Lord, you've had a very, very charmed life. The answer is Curt Schilling, 1998. You've heard of him.
Yeah.
All right.
All
right, go back and read some history books, Double D. I'm coming back for you next week. Next week, I'm going to give you a 70s trivia question.
Jesus. Way before my time. I'll have to dig deep for that one.
All right. Well, you know what? Why don't you give me an oldie question next week? That'll be your homework assignment.
All right.
So good stuff today, man. I think, there's always a lot to talk about with this team. It's always interesting. And love the fan participation. We've gotten a lot of, it's amazing how, this is only our 3rd show and we've got thousands of views on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. And we've gotten a lot of tweets, a lot of questions. Tell your friends about the show, man. We're having a good time doing it. And if there are things that we can do to make it more fun for you, the listener, let us know.
Absolutely. My man Prince, as always, in the comments. But yeah, so you can follow us on Twitter. As you see, I'm at DylanJD98. He's at Real Mike Small. You can follow this Spitballin podcast on Twitter at BallinSpit. Prince says, great stuff, guys. Thank you for watching, Prince, participating. Yeah, I mean, anyone watching or that's going to watch this after we're live here, whenever we're live on Wednesdays or sometimes Thursdays, join the conversation, jump in the comment section. You see, we'll answer your questions. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Only the Iverson episode in. Put Dylan in the batter's box. That would get views. Prince, I'll take you deep, bro. I'll take you right over that short left field wall at Citizens Bank Park.
Hey, man, it's been a while before this lefty arm, since this lefty arm was thrown down, but I'll face you in that batter's box for sure.
Yeah, you threw, before we wrap up here, you threw your first varsity game against my hometown, didn't you?
I had my first ever high school game against Delran High School. That is accurate.
Wild stuff.
Threw 5 innings, gave up 1 run, and we lost the game. And that was the highlight.
Do you remember?
The highlight of my high school career. So let's not dwell on that.
Was Delran's coach wasn't Bender, was it?
Oh, I don't remember, man. It was a long time ago.
He's done there
Long
now.
time ago.
Years. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for participating, Prince, as always. And go Phillies. They do have an off day today, but they have a very important series in Miami coming up. And by the time we come around for our next show, we'll probably only have less than 15 games left, less than a quarter of the season left. So have a nice night, guys.